On Biscayne Bay, Miami glistens in the sun. Playground to the world, city of beauty, leisure, and sports. Today in Miami, the 1987 IndyCar season comes to an end. It's the Nissan Indy Challenge. 2 years ago, at the inaugural race here at Tamiami Park, it started off with a bang as Mario Andretti tried to thread his way through the field at the green flag and took Emerson Fittipaldi and Roberto Guerrero to the wall with him. This race was a battle for the national championship between father and son. And as Al Unser threaded his way past Roberto Moreno, he was assured of the national championship. On the cool-down lap, Big Al and his son Little Al pulled side by side, the son saluting the father, the national championship in Al Unser's hands. And then last year, the action continued fast and furious as well. Roberto Guerrero was on the pole. Again, it was a fight for the national championship between Michael Andretti and Bobby Rahal. But as Michael fell by the wayside, Rahal was assured of the championship. The race itself, Guerrero was on the pole and led every lap but the last one. As he passed under the white flag on the final lap, he ran out of fuel. Little Al's fuel light was burning brightly, but he made it to the checkered flag and the victory. And Bobby Rahal pulled in as the national champion. This year, Rahal has already assured himself of a national championship, but Miami is always a dogfight. 28 IndyCar drivers are now strapped snugly in their cockpit, ready for that most famous command in sports, and here to give it, IndyCar driver Roberto Guerrero.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Those words coming to you from Roberto Guerrero. Our grand...
And now the pulse quickens, the heart beats faster. Drivers contemplate the nearly 200 miles that lie ahead, the decisions that will have to be made as over 25,000 horsepower now begins to roar out the challenge. Each driver sits in his cockpit, ready to go racing in this, the final race of the kart IndyCar season. So for the 15th and final time in 1987, the engines are started and we are ready to go racing. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and it's a wet, windy, blustery day here at Tamiami Park in Miami. We've had rain showers moving in and out of the area throughout the morning. We hope they stay away, but these Indy cars can run road courses in the rain. Now the situation is this. 2 weeks ago, Bobby Rahal wrapped up the national championship. Michael Andretti wrapped up second place. So that really means, Sam Posey, what we have here is a street fight.
Well, exactly. With the championship settled, it doesn't make sense anymore for a driver to be cautious and to finish second and instead of taking a lot of risks to be first. What it means is that instead there's a lot of pressure to be really fast. It's a loose attitude on one hand, but there's pressure to really go for it. It's like saying to a boxer, hey, you've got to go out and in this round get the knockout. And there are a couple of drivers who throughout the season have been a little bit conservative. I'm thinking of Jeff Brabham. I'm also thinking of Bobby Rahal, the champion, who I think today may perform beyond what we've seen them do the rest of the year. I'm really looking forward to it.
The crews, the teams, the drivers all will have a lot of decision making today because of the weather. Ideally, Bobby Unser, you'd like to run flat out. But if you run flat out here, you might run out of fuel.
That's true, Paul. You know, Miami is always a good race, but we don't always have rain. If they don't have a dry track, which it doesn't look like they're going to have at the moment, then it's going to be wet drivers. Guys that have a lot of experience, Mario Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Bobby Rahal. These guys have a lot of time in the rain, but more importantly, they're mechanics. That's the guys that are going to get the cars set for the wet if it actually gets wet.
Now, one man has a great deal riding on this race today. Let's go to Jack Arute now with that story.
Paul, that man's name is Jeff Brabham, and he is riderless going into 1988. He's been the regular competitor for Rick Gallus's team, but all of you know that Al Unser Jr. is going back to the Albuquerque-based team, and he's displaced two drivers, Jeff McPherson and Jeff Brabham. Brabham is winless in IndyCar competition, and he has qualified very well. He's starting in the second row, but yesterday in a late afternoon practice, he was the fastest of the field. He feels that a lot is riding today on how he does. He hasn't won, as we said, and there are those that say that the reason that he hasn't won is he doesn't possess the killer instinct, the ability to be aggressive. Earlier today, we asked him about that and said, how do you answer your critics when they say you don't have what it takes to be a consistent winner in IndyCar competition?
Well, I just don't think they know anything about racing. I mean, I think it's just a stupid statement because you know, racing, it's not just the driver. You've got to have the whole package to do well. And, you know, if I was driving for True Sports or Penske's or something, people would say something totally different. But that's racing. I mean, a lot of people have their opinions, but the people who really count is the one I'm concerned about, not the ones which are made from the barroom, you know.
Good luck today.
Thanks.
So Jeff Brabham, Can-Am champion, Super V champion, would like to win an IndyCar race here at Tamiami today. And so for the third year, this is the Nissan Indy Challenge at Tamiami Park in Miami, Florida. And today it's brought to you by Nissan Cars and Trucks, built for the most important race of all, the human race. By Miller Genuine Draft, cold filtered draft beer. It's as real as it gets. By the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, no matter how far you go, Goodyear takes you home. And by STP, makers of STP oil treatment. We've got what it takes to perform. So the field is out and rolling. 28 Indy cars going for over $500,000. 200 miles, 112 laps. Let's take a look at the starting grid. On the pole with a record qualifying run, Mario Andretti. He looks for his 50th IndyCar win. Alongside his son Michael, it is the 7th time that this father and son combination have shared the front row. The second row on the inside, Jeff Brabham. 6 times he has finished second. He's never won an IndyCar race. Alongside is Al Unser Jr. He won this race last year. He has not won since then. The third row on the inside is Danny Sullivan. He won the first race here at Tamiami Park. Alongside is Bobby Rahal. He already has the national championship wrapped up. 2 weeks ago, he won at Laguna Seca. Yesterday, he won nearly $250,000 in the Marlboro Challenge. He's on a winning streak. The fourth row on the inside, former world driving champion Emerson Fittipaldi has 4 IndyCar victories to his credit. Alongside is his teammate Kevin Cogan with 1 IndyCar victory looking for a second. The fifth row on the inside is Raul Boesel. He is replacing the injured Roberto Guerrero. And alongside is Rick Mears looking for his second IndyCar win of the season. And as we take a look at the rest of this starting field now, the cars weaving their way on what has already been declared as a wet start. Most of the cars, you can see, have their rain tires on. Notable by its absence in this field is the Porsche. The Porsche car failed to qualify for the start of this race. So we're set, we're ready to go. We have 1 lap to go to the pace lap. So let's take a ride around this course at Tamiami with Sam Posey.
The track here in Miami is a temporary road course, just under 1.8 miles in length, predominantly right turning, 6 turns to the right, only 3 to the left, with a fast backstretch of just under 2,000 feet. The lap begins with a right-hander that tightens up as you go through it. Accelerate out with a burst of acceleration into a second gear left-hander. Another burst of acceleration, a right-hander, and now the first of 2 chicanes that come one right after another. Tight turns, second gear turns, a little burst of acceleration here, the second chicane. And now coming into a turn that's very important. It leads out onto the fast back straight. Acceleration through the gears to over 170 miles an hour. A flat-out right-hander, and that is the lap, averaging about 114 miles an hour.
112 times around this circuit, and you're riding with Michael Andretti in the front row alongside his father as we look at the forecast here for Tamiami Park. They say 70% chance of rain. This race course is very damp right now. There are in fact standing puddles on several sections of the course. Over $500,000 here. First place will take home at least $59,000 today. And what about the drivers that have the greatest potential to win? As we look at the road course kings, Mario Andretti, 68 starts, 28 poles, and 20 wins. And then Bobby Rahal, who is the winningest driver of the 80s, but he starts back in what really is his second worst qualification in his history this year. We're ready to go. The pace car bringing the field down. Mario Andretti has chosen the right side. Michael Andretti to the outside. Sam Posey, as they come toward the final turn on the pace lap, a lot of changes on these cars because of the wet conditions.
Yes, changes to the suspension, to the aerodynamics will mean that as the cars go into turn one in just a moment, the drivers will be driving cars they are totally unfamiliar with the feel of. Very difficult moment ahead.
A beautiful view as we look head on. The field coming around the 9th and final turn. The green flag should lie just ahead. Mario Andretti keeps the pace down just a bit. The field beautifully through that final turn. Nick Finaro and Roberto Guerrero have the green flag. The green flag flies. Mario Andretti leads the field into the first turn as they tiptoe their way through that very difficult first turn. Mario almost loses it for a second. His son is right behind, and Al Unser Jr. moves up to try to close in on him through the second turn, heading for number 3.
Paul, they're all being real careful right now. They saw Mario slip a little bit. Remember, they don't do any testing like Sam was saying a while ago in the wet, so everything is new. Now, a few of them, like Mario, just changed the springs on his car on the starting line. I'm sure some of the other drivers had a few tricks they did also.
Michael Andretti pulls up just under the rear wing of his father as they come off of the chicane and through turn number 6. When you saw the onboard view just a moment ago, you saw a red light at the back of Mario's car. There for a brief instant, you see it again. It's not a brake light, it's a running light. It is for visibility because when spray comes up off the back of these cars, it's sometimes difficult to locate the back end.
Notice, Paul, that different parts of the track are wetter than other parts. Here, as they come along the longest straight, accelerating up even in the rain to 160 miles an hour and more, this is the wettest part. There are puddles here, and you have to try to take this right-hander flat out if you possibly can.
Very difficult considering how damp it is. Now, when we look here, it does not appear that damp, but look at the mist at the back of the car as first and second come through. Jeff Brabham has moved into 4th. Al Unser is now sitting in 3rd.
Well, Paul, you can just see that it's awfully slippery in places, but look right there. Now, it's getting dry in places. Now, this means if it dries out so that people understand that
Fittipaldi comes around Sullivan. Fittipaldi picking up a position.
Remember, Fittipaldi's one of the guys we say is a very good wet track driver, but you can see him go from dry to wet if you look at your TV real close. Now, if it gets totally dry, they'll blister these tires and have to come in and put dry tires on.
Let's keep an eye on this man, Fittipaldi. He really is a rainmaster. The only race that CART has truly run in distance in the rain recently was Elkhart 2 years ago, and Fittipaldi just disappeared from everyone. He's brilliant in the rain.
It's that experience, Paul, that he had when he was racing in Europe, when he won his 2 world championships. You see him making a bid here to get by Bobby Rahal in the all-red car number 1.
Fittipaldi running in 8th place, trying to come up and pick up Bobby Rahal and pick up the position as he does so. So Emerson Fittipaldi starting to drive up through this field, coming through the line. Benefit of passes on that last lap. Emerson Fittipaldi charging up through this field.
A lot of the European races are wet. Emo, that's where he came from. He's a road racer all of his life. He does a lot better job on road circuits than he does on ovals, and it's really starting to show up in the wet.
So Fittipaldi, with that pass of Bobby Rahal, moves actually into 5th place. It is Mario Andretti that leads, followed by Michael, then Al Unser Jr., Jeff Brabham, and then Emerson Fittipaldi definitely on the charge. Mario Andretti, chased by his son Michael, and sitting back just a bit is Al Unser Jr. We'll be back with more from Tamiami.
The New York Giants are trying to turn their season around, but the Dallas Cowboys are battling to get atop the NFC East. They meet on ABC's Monday Night Football.
Danny Sullivan pulls the car to the side of the course. A quick spin, we believe, getting him there. So Danny Sullivan, who started very well in 5th place, and it looks like, well, now he's trying to get the car rolled back, and with some help, perhaps he can get back into the action.
He's being pulled back, of course, by the course workers to
They're
safety
taking him
there.
all the way off.
Yeah.
So Danny Sullivan.
He's trying to get started, Paul. he probably spun and just killed his engine. He's waving back off the track, so I guess that's all for Danny.
Danny Sullivan won the first race here at Tamiami Park, and here in the early going, despite a good start, and there's another car. That's Barbaza, the number 12 machine. That's a little more serious, head on into those tire barriers.
It'll show you how safe the tire barriers are. Now, he went in there without getting hurt. The car's no doubt hurt, but look how the car's buried into the tires.
And you
That's
see when
exactly
the grass, and Bobby, when the grass is wet like that, we're going to see more and more of this kind of accident where the guy can't get the car slowed down at all. Here's Barbaza running. We see he's in fine shape. But when you go off the track, you're going to go into the guardrail.
Well, the grass, being so wet, it really feels like you gain speed when you hit wet grass instead of slowing down.
Just like coming off on ice. As now Michael Andretti continues to worry Dad just as hard as he can.
Yes, and the pace is picking up. Notice they're going faster. The line on the track that they're using is drying up. And what's happening as you see the pass for the lead.
And Mario is passed by his son. Michael Andretti goes into the lead.
Now remember, right on the starting line, Mario changed springs. We don't think that Michael changed very much on his car, so if they're set up for a dry track, as I think Michael is, that could be the reason that he passed Mario.
Exactly, and this may seesaw during the day. If we see more rain, then the advantage may pass back to Mario.
So Mario Andretti drops back to second place. We've had our first lead change as Michael picks it up, and look how he comes off of that corner. The back end comes way around.
Well, of course, they're running on these rain tires. There you see Sullivan being pulled back to the pits, but the rain tires only give a fraction of the grip, Paul, that the dry tires do, and if it continues to dry up like this, they're going to have to pit before their normally scheduled time.
It's clear road ahead for Michael Andretti, but you can see there's plenty of puddled water on this track.
Well, the puddles, Paul, remember now, every time another car or one car runs through the puddle, he drags the water and spreads it all over the track. So every time you come around a corner with a puddle there, you don't know if this dry line is going to be there or if it's going to be just splattered with water.
Despite the fact that much of this course is wet, they are averaging 91 miles an hour right now. We talked at the beginning about Jeff Brabham. He is now locked in battle with Emerson Fittipaldi. Brabham has fourth at the moment, but Fittipaldi is closing down.
Well, this is the kind of charging that we talked about earlier. Can Brabham, who really has nothing to lose today and everything to gain, can he hold off Fittipaldi? Fittipaldi showing him there that he's there in his mirrors. He wasn't really trying to pass. He was just pulling out to start the psych job on Brabham to try to get by him.
Jeff Brabham, he has no ride for next season. If he could score well here today, especially if he could win, then perhaps he would have some negotiating leverage. Right now, his job is to keep Emerson Fittipaldi from coming around.
Well, I don't think he's going to be able to hold Emo back. Emo is on the charge. In fact, right now you'd have to say Emo is probably the most aggressive car in the race. And when it dries out, of course, remember, things could change tremendously.
So Emerson Fittipaldi continues to worry Jeff Brabham, and their fight is beginning to carry them forward. Just ahead, you can see Al Unser Jr., and they're beginning to catch up. Now let's go to the pits. Jack.
Let's give you an update on what you people were speculating up in the booth as Danny Sullivan is working his way onto pit road. We checked with Michael Andretti's crew chief, Barry Green, as to how they decided to set the car up. They said it's the same setup we used in practice yesterday. So obviously they've chosen the dry setup, while Mario Andretti has chosen a softer, what we would call a wet setup. That might account for the early pass by Michael. Back up to you.
All right, now with Danny Sullivan, the report is that he did get in contact with Barbaza, and so the Penske team will have to go to work on that car. You saw them working with the front suspension, trying to determine whether or not the car is still raceable.
What we see here is Brabham is trying to hold Fittipaldi off. Brabham in the blue and white car, Fittipaldi in the red and white car. It's not only a race for speed, but it's also Brabham's chance to show that he's tough, to show that he's mentally tough and prepared to race with a man who's won 2 races this year and has twice been world champion.
The race leader is Michael Andretti. We are watching the fight for fourth. The 15 car of Jeff Brabham being chased by the 20 car of Emerson Fittipaldi. Just ahead of these two on the course is Al Unser Jr., who is now beginning to close down behind Mario Andretti.
Right now, Paul, there is no rain. Right now we're looking real good. The track is obviously drying. Little Al is pulling up on Mario. It's just going to be a question of whether Mario changed springs at the wrong time. Did he gamble on a lot of rain? Right now it looks like it could be hurting the setup by changing those springs.
Right now, Mario's gamble looks terrible, doesn't it, Bobby and Paul? But yet, there are clouds all around Tamiami Park here. We've got almost 2 hours of racing ahead of us, so we've got to expect the unexpected in the next hour or so.
Already, Michael Andretti has begun to encounter some of the slower cars at the back of the field, and so this battle in front begins to wind its way up through slower cars. And Al Unser Jr. has dropped back a little bit off of Mario, but this battle between Fittipaldi and Brabham continues.
Let me talk just for a second about what they do to the cars to make them more tractable in the rain. It's pretty simple. You want the car to be softer, a little bit more gradual as it makes its moves in the turn. Most of all, you want to do things in the way of softening your sway bars and springs and changing your wing angles that mean that the car will not oversteer, that the tail will not jump out unexpectedly on you in the rain. Remember, these are turbocharged cars giving over 700 horsepower, and the last thing you want, Paul, is to be going through a turn and suddenly have a lot of horsepower and get into a big slide.
And that is primarily the setup that Andretti has, but Andretti, as Al Unser comes under him, he catches a tap from him. Randy Lewis is in there as a slower car in front of him, and the advantage now goes to Unser, who picks up the position on Andretti. And look, here comes Jeff Brabham and Emerson Fittipaldi around Randy Lewis as well, but that's the dangerous part. They have to go into a very wet section to get there.
Paul, if you remember, that's the same aggressive driving that Al Jr. used last year. He came from way back in the starting position to win the race, of course, with the help of Roberto running out of fuel. But this race, as dry as it's getting, could end up being a little bit of a fuel problem.
So Little Al has now moved up into second place as Michael Andretti still leads. We'll be back. We're back at Tamiami Park in Miami, the Nissan Indy Challenge. I'm Paul Page with Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, and Jack Arute as we watch Michael move around a slower car of Johnny Rutherford. And through a yellow section on the course, you are riding with the leader of the race, Michael Andretti. Now let's go back just a few moments ago. This was a battle for second place. Al Unser Jr. closing down on Mario Andretti, riding in second at that moment. As he tried to get by, they encountered a slower car, the car of Randy Lewis. Planning the pass very carefully, Little Al was able to bottle Mario up, slap past on the inside, touch tires with Mario, and pick up second place. Apparently there is no damage, but that's not to suggest that there might not be something subtle on that car that will manifest itself later. Back to the leader now, Michael Andretti out in front of this field. Earlier we talked about passing on this race course and how he would decide when to pass.
I usually don't make a pass unless I feel I can pull it off. I don't, but sometimes there comes a point where it's a risk factor, you know, it's a percentage pass, and it depends on the situation, where you're running, what kind of points you need. Those are things that might dictate on what kind of chances you take. And, you know, like this weekend we have nothing to lose, so we'll probably take a few more chances than we would say if we were going for a championship.
We watch now the battle for fourth place, the 15 car of Jeff Brabham, still being chased by Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi seems now satisfied to sit back behind him because the battle is indeed carrying them up to Mario Andretti. Now again, Mario, as Sam Posey pointed out a few moments ago, really on a softer setup, one that perhaps is less adaptable to the surface the way it runs now. Now, let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, there are so many variances in terms of tire choice, setups, etc. that we've talked about when you work in the rain. Well, here's what we've discovered with many of the front runners. When they loaded on their rain tires, some of them went with brand new rain tires, like this one here. But a lot of the front runners, particularly the gentlemen that are leading this event, went with used rain tires. Now, here's the difference. On a new rain tire, you have a hard edge into the channels. Now, that will channel the water away, but it cuts down on the adhesion because you don't have as much grip or as much bite as a racer would say. But do you see what happens when you wear that off a little bit? You increase the grip, the adhesion of these rain tires. That also accounts for why some of these drivers are looking for the puddles down the back straightaway. They want to cool the tires down because they're literally running on some used rubber already. Back up to you.
So the rain for some working to their advantage as we rejoin. Now a battle for third place. Mario Andretti in that bright red number 5 has it, but look at Jeff Brabham. Just as we suggested, he pushes Mario to the outside. Mario wisely gives him room, and Jeff Brabham now moves into third place.
Paul, Jack made that great point about how the drivers are looking to cool these tires, which are getting hotter and hotter as the track dries out. We'll watch them take extraordinarily strange lines, especially Emerson Fittipaldi, trying to keep those tires cool. Now, why do they get hot? The answer is that these very soft rubber compounds that are run to make a rain tire stick well in the water heats up more quickly. It's a phenomenon. It's also a thicker tread, incidentally. It's a phenomenon called hysteresis. And the point is, you just can't afford to let that tire get too hot because it will start to blister and chunk.
Another moment from our science professor, Sam Posey, as we're back on board with the leader now, Michael Andretti. Second place is Al Unser Jr., and Michael has the very delicate job of threading his way through slower traffic. This circuit here is not that far around, only 1.78 miles, so it's really quite tight, though you can see the course is very wide. That's Jeff McPherson just in front of him, and Michael, as he encounters these slower cars, will be very, very careful.
Well, what I noticed just then from the in-car camera, Bobby, I don't know what you thought, but as Michael reached high speed, look at the vibration. Well, here he's going slower. It's not so bad. But at the end of that straight, he was starting to pick up significant vibration. That probably is a tire factor.
The biggest concern among the drivers right now is going to be whether they're going to blister these soft rain tires or not. The track, in a lot of places, is just totally dry now. The drivers are mostly running in the dry or in just damp places. So it's really a dry track right now for tires. They may be starting to chunk them already, Sam.
I think we'll see the first of the pit stops to change to dry tires very soon. But of course, everybody's trying to stay out there long enough. This race would ordinarily have 2 pit stops for fuel and tires during it. If you stay out just long enough, you can get to your regularly scheduled pit stop moment.
Well, I'm watching them run down the straightaway now. They're all running in the water in the straightaways where they can, just to cool the tires. So that's a possible problem.
Looking back through the field now, Al Unser Jr. lies in second place. Jeff Brabham lies in third. And what is happening, of course, is that these tires are soft, they are heating up, and they're beginning to go away. And you can see evidence of that, especially with the leaders. As we watch the 30 car of Al Unser Jr. riding in second place. Coming through the corner, you see him slide out just a bit. Now, he seems to be in better control than Michael did a few minutes ago. And look at him thread his way through traffic.
Of course, the crew chiefs are now standing there in the pits, looking around, trying to see if there might be more rain on the way. The worst thing you could do would be to come in right now, change to dries, and then have it start to rain.
There's Jeff Brabham, the 15 car, currently running in third place.
You can watch. Oh, excuse me.
Let's go to the pit, Bobby Unser and Jack.
To make matters worse, gentlemen, it's beginning to rain down here on pit road. So while the crew chiefs are looking at the tires and the temperature's starting to heat up, they're also hard-pressed as to whether to go to the dry tires because it's getting dark and it's getting wet here again. Back up to you.
Roberto Guerrero and his wife, Katie, Vince Granatelli over there on the left. Now, he's really, in a way, a participant because he is third place in the points right now, and he is watching, hoping that his position maintains itself. Back with the leader, Michael Andretti. He started alongside his father on the front row, fought his dad for the lead, and took it away. Back on board at Tamiami Park, Michael Andretti out in front. He works his way around Danny Sullivan, who has gotten restarted after that early race incident with Fabrizio Barbaza, and now has to thread up behind several other cars. That's Lewis to the outside, and he must be extraordinarily careful here. That's Didier Thies just ahead of him. Thies is normally an ARS driver, but Crew Sports promised him a ride this year at the end of the season in the backup car to Bobby Rahal if he did well. Well, he won the championship, so he has his IndyCar ride. Now, we mentioned at the start of the race, conspicuous by its absence in this field is the Porsche, a car that really many people expected a great deal out of. So let's go back and recount the struggle of the Porsche IndyCar.
The racing community was excited when Porsche unveiled its first entry into IndyCar racing. At last, the British-dominated chassis of March, Lola, and Penske were challenged by a highly respected German manufacturer. Porsche had long established itself as a winner in endurance racing. Now, if Porsche could succeed in the IndyCars, it was the hope that other European car manufacturers would follow. And who better to debut this new machine than four-time Indianapolis 500 winner Al Unser? But the smiles and speculation quickly faded. After months of design changes and testing in Germany, Porsche made its American debut at Laguna Seca. The curiosity and publicity were there, but not the rave reviews. In fact, one of the biggest critics was Al himself.
Like you said, everybody has got a lot of saying that Porsche is going to come over and just ruin auto racing. Well, they can't. They won't. It's a hard business over here. It's not easy. The kart racing and Indy type racing is hard. It's strong competition, and to come over and dominate, they won't do it, but they will be strong.
The main criticism of the car was that the chassis design was old and not in keeping with the latest thinking. There were gearing problems, a lack of downforce. Chassis number 001 seemed more massive than other Indy cars. All the pride and tradition behind this German design were not enough to make that Porsche competitive. The machine started at the back of the pack and was the first car out of the race with fuel pump problems. In fact, the only good thing about Porsche's debut was that it was over. Al Holbert of the Porsche team responded philosophically. He said that Laguna Seca and Miami were testing grounds for the new machine and that Porsche experts expected to start next season highly competitive. The driver most often cited as the regular for this machine in 1988 is Mario Andretti. But in light of the car's initial problems, Mario may now be having second thoughts.
10 years ago, I probably would have thought nothing of embarking on a brand new program, and then just with a hope that, of course, it's going to come together sooner or later. But right now, it can't be later. It's got to be sooner if I embark on a new program. So that is the definite difference. I have to try to make the rest of my years count, and I will do everything possible in the decision that I make to make that happen.
Al Unser and Porsche went separate ways, and the president of Porsche Racing North America, Al Holbert, took over the car, but still it performed poorly and did not qualify.
And the bottom line is we just we ran out of time, and traditionally Porsche likes to test before they even go to a racetrack, but there wasn't time to do that. But we felt the need to appear, not only for Quaker State, but for our own edification was much more important than the status of the car.
So Porsche now has a winter of work before they return to IndyCar racing when the season opens at Phoenix next April. We're looking at Jose Legarza, the 55 car. They're working on his machine after contact. Now, he was fighting for 10th place with Arie Luyendyk, and the two of them got together. Let's watch carefully here. The 71 car of Luyendyk and the 55 car out of your frame at the moment. They're both alongside Derek Daly. And look at Garza, just tried to get in behind Luyendyk, but misjudged the move, and it took his front wings away.
Horrendous error, it would seem, by Garza, who is not going to be in the IndyCar series next year, but has aspirations in Formula One.
Sam, I think where the problem comes in, and it's a problem I think CART is starting to address. The drivers can't see out of the sides of the cars. The next time you see it on the camera, you'll see that Michaels has been cut back a little way. But there is no way on the standard March car that a guy can see a car coming up alongside until the other car has totally passed him a little bit.
Yeah,
it's
good.
Taken, and I don't think Jose even saw that car there.
Yeah, good point, Bobby, and I hate to put the blame on a driver when, you know, you're not in the cockpit yourself and don't know the problems that he faces.
Some of the mechanics have cut back the sides. That's right along the driver's helmet where you see Krakow right on the side of that car. Some of the mechanics have cut them back because the way they come stock, you just can't see out of the side of them.
We watch the number 1 car, Bobby Rahal, just behind, more familiar to us as Roberto Guerrero's car, but that's Raul Boesel driving the number 4 machine. They're really just keeping station. Bobby Rahal running in 6th place, which is exactly where he started this race. Bobby Rahal, though, is, you may have just noticed, catching up to Mario Andretti. Now, Mario started in the lead and has now fallen back into 5th place. So Rahal now, with that pass there of a slower car, moves up right behind Mario Andretti, and the fight begins for 5th.
Well, Mario just been kind of holding on, Paul. I don't know what else to say, but he isn't going his normal speed. And I'm going to guess it has to be predicated on that spring change again that he did right on the starting line, predicated on the fact the track was going to stay very wet. And it hasn't. It's a gamble. Sometimes Mario has won by doing that exact gamble.
And of course, if it would rain here, and it's been raining on and off, and some of them have just been real deluges on this ground, then Mario's strategy, his tactics, may play back for him. So Bobby Rahal, we watch him as he runs in 6th place. Bobby Rahal, now already the champion. How does he approach this race now that he already has the championship wrapped up?
Well, you know, an approach that, you know, if I was here and I was 18 points ahead of Michael, I would have to finish, you know, and drive conservatively to do that. In this situation, everything's been said and done. You know, we're here to win. We're here to win the race. I think we go everywhere to win the race, but I think the only strategy is, you know, if you break. I mean, it's a no-lose situation as far as I can see. You know, everything we do can be directed towards winning.
Well, right now, Bobby Rahal is directed at Mario Andretti, and Mario Andretti occupies fifth.
Well, you know, I think Rahal would particularly like to show speed here today to silence those critics who said maybe he is a little bit cautious. I alluded to that at the outset of the show, and I feel that he has been cautious. While being cautious, here's A.J. Foyt in the pits momentarily. Foyt, but back to Rahal, he's also been so fast as to win a great many races, more than anybody else in the 80s this year. I think he's a driver of immense talent, but I think he'd like to be able to show on this occasion, when the wraps are off, so to speak, that he can run with anybody.
Rahal has no spectacular single moments, but he really is consistently very good. Notice that A.J. Foyt was retiring his car with another set of rain tires. We'll be back. We're back at Tamiami Park. Let's go to the pits.
Well, here's the first change in strategy. The team is Kevin Kogan. He's already been in once for a punctured tire. Now he's the first team to come in and go to dry tires. The track has dried up considerably. A calculated move, but he's the first to do it. He's off and away. Dry rubber, first driver. Kogan, back to you.
So Kevin Kogan makes exactly the opposite decision that A.J. Foyt made just a few moments ago. You know, tomorrow, primetime NFL action continues on ABC's Monday Night Football. Super Bowl champion New York Giants with quarterback Bill Sims take on the Dallas Cowboys in an NFC East rivalry. Action begins live at 9 o'clock Eastern. That's tomorrow night right here on ABC Sports.
We are looking at the view from inside Michael Andretti's car, but you see Emerson Fittipaldi now dragging his front wing. There he goes, the left part of his wing. He's obviously made contact with somebody, Paul, but it looks to me as if the damage is limited to the wing. I don't think, oh, well, no, look back there on the writing on the side.
Somebody's gotten into the side of its nub, so you've got the left front wing damage. Now, most of these road racers, especially at these slightly reduced speeds because of the rain tires they're running, have proven that you can lose that wing and still continue to run well. But look, Andretti senses that, and Andretti now begins to close up, and right behind Andretti, we have Bobby Rahal.
Yeah, but this is scary for Mario, because if that wing were to come off suddenly into his path, in other words, he's got to try to set up the pass. He's all right. He's getting by.
Fittipaldi pulls really to the inside, allows everyone to come on through.
Oh, they'll have to black flag him.
And he comes to the pit.
Yes, he has to come in, because they can't continue like that. That's an unsafe condition.
So Emerson Fittipaldi on the pit road now. Contact with somebody, destroying that left front wing, damaging the aerodynamics, and they say that the contact was brief, but with A.J. Foyt.
All right, now, of course, Emerson's teammate is Kevin Kogan, and Kogan changed from wet tires to dry, and we are now seeing Emerson do exactly the same. So in some ways, this could be beneficial. And Jack Arute has the story.
Well, they've removed the wing from the front of the car. They're going to try and make an adjustment there, put a brand new one on. And as Sam Posey said, this team as well has decided to go with the dries, taking advantage of this disadvantage to try and make a switch. But now they're having difficulty getting the right front portion of the wing out. They're going to move the entire bar out. That doesn't seem to do any good. So taking a look, now it looks as if, what are they going to do? They're still trying to bang it back and forth. Let's go back up to you till they figure out what they're going to do.
Gary Rovazini, the crew chief, struggling with that. Let's go back and see if we can't see what happened. There it is, A.J. Foyt making the turn in. Didn't know Fittipaldi was alongside. That issue that we talked about. It took Foyt all the way around, backed off the course and caught a little piece of the wall. Fittipaldi got stopped, but not before he suffered that damage to his wing. As Bobby Rahal now due for a pit stop, running in 6th place. Bobby Rahal into the pits. This appears to be routine. Bobby Rahal pitches a bottle back over the wall, received a little refreshment, a little water, and the True Sports crew going to work on this car.
He too has gone to dry tires, so that's the prevailing wisdom here. And if you look at the front of Ray Hall's car, he has quite a bit of what's called camber in those tires. They're leaning in quite a bit. I think that's a setting that is more suitable to running in the dry than in the wet. This explains to me now a little bit why he was slow in the wet. I expect to see Ray Hall start to really pick up speed because I think his car is very well set for the dry.
Sam, those high camber settings that you see on the front end are actually for the radial tires. The Goodyear radial tires is the reason they've done that. And it'll be the same for the wet to dry because they're both radials.
Well, many of the crews had indicated that you really want to stand that tire a little more upright if you are running on a rain tire. Now we are watching Michael Andretti out in front by a full 17 seconds of Al Unser Jr. with 30 of the 112 laps scheduled complete.
Paul, the track, if everybody just watches it, is really getting dry. And, of course, that just makes for better racing than it does in the wet. But it's going to mean that I think all the cars that haven't stopped yet are going to probably all put on dry tires. The speed will go up. The handling will obviously change for some of the cars.
Michael Andretti averaging just over 98 miles an hour as we watch Emerson Fittipaldi.
He went back out without that wing being fully fixed, so Fittipaldi is running now handicapped, presumably while his crew is working to get another wing set up prepared for him in the pit. See that missing left front wing?
Now normally those wings at these speeds are not quite that critical. We have seen in the past drivers run entire races with the front wings gone or with them damaged, but of course they would like to get that wing fixed if they possibly can.
Well, they will if they can, Paul, but look at it. It's rubbing the ground right now. The right one lost its anchor point as well as the left front just being totally gone, so they may, after a while, just flash flagging and tell him to come on in and keep flapping.
Let's go back down to Jack.
Well, Bobby Rahal followed suit of the Petrick team. When he came in, they took these tires off and put slick tires on. So Steve Horn and the crew have decided to take the dry gamble as well. And here's why. Take a good close look at these rain tires. They're not worn out, but they've been rubbed apart quite a bit. That real sticky rubber, it just peels off with your hand now. That's how hot these tires got out in the dry.
So the tactics now being played. Many of the leaders, those that have stopped, have now changed over to the dry tires. I'm not so sure it is the best gamble because the skies have begun to darken just a bit again. Michael Andretti still on the reins, still runs in the lead by a full 14 seconds.
As we look around from our booth here, and we have a pretty good view over about 180 degrees to the southwest, it looks as if rain could come at any moment. I mean, I'm not saying it will, it could. It's a very heavy, humid condition, almost impossible to predict. If I was a crew chief, Bobby, I mean, I really wouldn't know what to do. It is a crapshoot.
Yes, it is, Sam, and of course, let's be sure to tell the people, the dry tires mean that there is no tread. If we were to have a cloudburst and come down after everybody changes to the dry tires, it will have to come in and change to the wets immediately.
We're watching the second place car. That number 30 machine belongs to Al Unser Jr. as the redhead tries to close down on the leader, Michael Andretti. He closed just a little bit a lap ago. We began watching him, and the interval has maintained itself for a lap, now at just under 15 seconds.
Remember, it was Al Jr. who won the race here last year, spectacularly taking the lead from Roberto Guerrero on the last lap when Guerrero ran out of fuel. So here's a man who has very good vibration, so to speak, about winning this race. But this is the last race that he runs for this Shearson team, the team he's been with for 3 years now. And he goes instead to the Gallus team next year. So he is one of many drivers who this year are playing the game of musical chairs.
So Michael Andretti still out in front. Al Unser Jr. behind him. Jeff Brabham continues to try to get into that leader fight, and Mario Andretti is fourth. We'll be back.
Saturday begins with ABC's college football today. Then it's revenge in the Big Ten when Michigan meets Minnesota. Last year, the Golden Gophers upset the Wolverines. Now, led by the #1 running back in the conference, Jamie Morris, the Wolverines are primed for a payback or an exciting Pac-10 matchup. Everybody's having fun Saturday on ABC's college football.
We are back at the Nissan Indy Challenge, Tamiami Park in Miami. We're watching from Michael Andretti's onboard camera. He's the leader. Just ahead, that bright yellow machine, is Rick Mears. Now, Mears is trying to catch Raul Boisel. It is a fight for 5th place. Boisel is driving for Roberto Guerrero, who was injured. And it is extremely important to both these drivers because if Boisel can keep that position, they can keep the car essentially in third place in the points. But Rick Mears would desperately like to get past him and pick up a position.
Well, he's been working on him pretty hard, but right now he's got Michael putting the lap on him, working on him real hard, so it's kind of pulled him away a little bit for the moment, Paul.
Look down on the left of your screen there inside of Michael's cockpit. His fuel warning light, as we see Jeff Brabham in the pits changing from wet to dry. There's that fuel warning light starting to blink, so Michael Andretti's pit stop is coming up soon. By the way, as we see, we now have a fire in Jeff Brabham's.
No, not in Jeff's car. That's the car just behind him. It's Jeff McPherson's car. Just a quick little fire at the back of the engine. Jeff Brabham was running in third at the time he came into his stop, and there the 15 car of Jeff Brabham is back into the action. So Michael Andretti has not yet stopped. He's the leader.
Paul, I just had a clock on Kevin Koch, and he's running about 3 seconds a lap faster on dry tires than young Michael is on wet tires. It'll be interesting. Michael will be pitting probably within 2 to 3 laps now. It'll be interesting to see what he goes to. I think he'll go to dries because he'll have to stay up.
Now, we got caught up with that action, and you see that Michael Andretti got around Rick Mears and is now closing down on Boisel. So Mears is dropping back just a bit, and Michael is lapping up through the front.
Yes, but the car right behind is Davy Jones, who's a lap back because he's changed his tires. But look at how much faster he is than Michael. That visibly is the difference between wet and dry tires, as I think now,
They head for the pits.
Michael into the pits.
So Boisel and Michael Andretti, our leader, both in. Boisel running in 4th place at this moment. But of course the key is Michael Andretti. And those rain tires, you can see the tread as he slows to a stop and pops up his visor. They have begun to cost him. Let's go to the pits.
Now Michael Andretti has come in for service from his team. They're looking over, and they have now decided to go to dry tires as well. They're making the exchange, filling the tank up with fuel. You can see what a dramatic effect it had on the handling and the speed of the car. No choice but the only choice to go to the slick tires. Michael has decided to do that along with Barry Green, the crew chief, and he stalls the car again. He did it yesterday. Remember at Michigan, he did it several times. Now today, leading this event, he has stalled it one more time. They've got to get the jack up. They've refired it now, and Raul Boisel is back out on the racetrack, as is Rick Mears, and they still haven't fired the car. They do now, and he's away. A costly stop, but he stalled again. He got it back on. Back to you.
Well, these motors, especially one equipped like Michael's is, will chug away very slowly. You may remember at our broadcast at Nazareth that Michael would actually put the car on the jacks and spin the rear wheels before pulling out of the pits. They just drop him down. Cart said, we don't want any more of that. This is Mario Andretti running in 4th place as he comes in for his stop. Will he go to dry tires?
Michael, of course, has that problem more than anybody else, though. So there's something peculiar about the way that car is set up, or conceivably, I think this is unlikely, something about the way Michael leaves the pits that causes him to stall.
Well, Michael's car is using a fuel management system. It is one of the few that is. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's go to Jack.
Another car that's utilizing the fuel management, gentlemen, is on pit road. That's Al Unser Jr. He, too, was elected to go to the dry tires. And Mario Andretti is in and out. And now they drop the jack. And again, Al Unser Jr. has a much quicker stop than the leader. This could give him the lead as he gets back to the racetrack. Back to you.
Well, Little Al comes out certainly in the lead of the race. We'll see when he actually gets on the course whether or not he's able to join in front. We were talking about fuel management in Michael's car. They say that when they are coming out of the pits, that fuel management will tend to starve the engine just a little bit, Bobby.
Well, both of them, Little Al's car and Michael's, both have virtually the same units, but they have different engine development programs. And for example, if Little Al had just a little bit milder cams in his engine than yet Michael does, he would get out of the pits a little bit better. And I suspect that's probably where most of the problem is. Michael's going a little bit more for top-end horsepower. Little Al maybe a little bit more for mid-range horsepower.
So with an excellent stop by the Shearson team, Al Unser comes out in the lead of this race. That car 30. Rick Mears is just behind him, but Mears is way down in 12th place, simply trying to catch up and get back up onto the leader lap.
Well, certainly, as everyone almost has changed now to dry tires. You see Pancho Carter going by in that orange car. It has grown darker still, and you see the paths.
Rick Mears just really blew him away. Perhaps Little Al decided, since we are going to these dry tires and Rick isn't a factor, I just don't want to fight with him.
Well, what it is they're all just out of the pits, and some of them are taking a little bit more chances than the others right now, I think, Paul.
The other thing, too, is that Little Al's tires may not be fully up to heat. Let's take a look at Little Al's situation in the past year. You saw him a year ago when he won this race. He has not won since then. So he would love to pick up a win here. He's leading for the first time this season.
Well, he has. He's been very fast, too. In the Marlboro Challenge yesterday, he was very fast. And
Danny Sullivan in the pits. Sullivan is not really in the fight of this race. Remember, he was in contact early in the race with Barbaza, and they have been trying to get that car repaired ever since, as Chuck Sprague, the crew chief, down there on the left front of the car, trying to get the machine properly repaired and back into race trim.
Look at how much darker it is. If you were a photography buff, it was about an F11 a half an hour ago. It's now about an F5.6. It has grown a lot darker. Just as everybody goes to dries, the situation looks far more menacing, especially to the south, and the wind is coming from the south.
And Michael Andretti pulls up behind Emerson Fittipaldi. Now, Fittipaldi also not really running in the leader serial. In fact, he's down in 16th place. Michael is trying to thread his way through and get in contact with Al Unser Jr., who is just a bit ahead of Fittipaldi, and then there you see the two of them just ahead. If Michael can catch that 30 car, then we have a fight for the lead as we look at the onboard camera.
Now remember, Michael told Jack LaRute that they didn't change their car. Barry Green, the mechanic, said they didn't change it. They're on a dry setup and on dry tires now. So that should mean that Michael should have a real good edge on at least his father and possibly some of the other guys that changed him, Paul.
All of the leaders moving from the wet setup over to the dry, and Michael Andretti now closes down and tries to catch Al Unser Jr. to fight for the lead. We'll be back.
We're back at Tamiami Park as we watch a group of the leaders. Michael Andretti, of course, that 18 car is the leader. The 30 car is Al Unser Jr. He is in second place, and right in the midst of all this, despite the fact that he's 5 laps off the pace and running 16th, is the number 3 car of Danny Sullivan. Now, Sullivan is apparently feeling very racy.
Well, he was recently profiled by 2020 last Friday night, and he is riding a crest of popularity, I would say, and he wants to deliver the goods to the fans. I mean, it's frustrating to be so far down, but you can still drive the wheels off the car.
Another important point is, look at all this, as they weave back and forth on the straight here. Danny Sullivan doesn't give up. He's 16th place. He has no chance of going to the front. He's essentially out of the points, but what he would like to do is stay in there and prove that he can fight. Now, of course, the stock market has been bad recently, and with that, it could have a potential effect on these drivers in their careers. We asked Danny Sullivan about that.
I think that it will affect the whole economy. Me personally, I'm not really in the stock market, so I won't get affected there. But I think in terms of racing, when anybody gets hurt or companies get hurt or individuals get hurt, they start cutting back. The entertainment sports are usually the first ones to get affected. But I haven't seen any so far. Now, if the country goes into recession, I think it'll hurt racing as it will everything else.
Well, Danny Sullivan, he did say, though, that many of the endorsements that he does, sunglasses and clothing, could be affected, and therefore his income, and that could happen to a number of drivers. Sam Posey.
Oh yeah, I share his gloomy forecast, frankly, and I'm surprised that as I talked to a lot of people involved in racing, they didn't seem to think it was going to matter that much. Now, what is mattering is that Michael Andretti is pulling away from Al Unser Jr., who's bottled up behind Danny Sullivan, but as I made a point earlier, Bobby disagreed with me, but little Al has had trouble getting by Mario. He was up making a bid to get by Mario and got chopped off, and that is how this big gap occurred that allowed Sullivan to get by.
So Michael leads Little Al by nearly 2 seconds as Little Al comes around Danny Sullivan, not for position, but it still keeps him in contact with the leader. Let's go to the pits once again.
The Al Unser Jr. team is going to play another joker in their card deck right now. They had intended to bring Al Unser Jr. in another 10 laps. Now they're going to call him in because he has a left front tire blister. It is starting to rain here quite heavily. Dennis Swan has elected to go back to the rain tires. So they've radioed to Al to come in this time by, make the exchange a little bit earlier. This could create some problems vis-a-vis fuel mileage for the end of the race. We'll have to wait and see. Back to you.
Well, Jack Arute, that's just exactly what we wondered about in the tactics of this race. We see now a number of people up and down pit road in the grandstands beginning to put on their raincoats and pull plastic over their heads again, and that means that these tires will suddenly get very slick indeed. But we are also very close to not only the potential stop of Little Al, but the scheduled stops should really come within 7 laps. Perhaps they will come a little earlier. Look at Mario Andretti jump down inside Raul Boisel and hold on to 5th place, actually picking up 5th place there.
Well, the move that Little Al is going to make is a characteristic racing gamble. If he does what Jack suggests, and, you know, it could win him the race if he changes now to rain tires, because, as Paul just pointed out, it is starting to rain, at least here at our booth, which is right near the start-finish line, and I think around other parts of the track as well.
Remember, Sam, the track can stay fairly damp, fairly wet before the dry tires will go away. Unless we have a cloud burst, it'll hurt him coming in right now, because everybody's still going their customary dry speed, which is over 100 miles an hour, about 105.
Okay, but he just went by the entrance to the pit, so he's going to make at least one more lap, as you see Little Al there, on his dry tires.
Right now, he's really not losing an awful lot to Michael with his blistered left front tire. He's just not able to pass very many, and he gets in that traffic and he can't get away. But there's less a loss there than it would be if he changes right now.
And Bobby Rahal, running in third place, makes his stop as Jim Prescott on the left front. And look at there. We're going back to the rain tires. Tactics being played now by True Sports.
Yeah, but also look at Rahal's body language, the way he was shaking his head and disgustedly threw his water bottle out of the car. He, who was the champion this year, is not enjoying the race today. There's something about his car, I would predict, that is not functioning 100% today.
He's been used to winning races all season, or at least if not winning them, leading them, Sam, and he's just not having a super quick day. And you know Rahal's not slowing down just because it's the last race.
Well, if nothing else, it's breaking up Bobby Rahal's streak. He won yesterday here in the Challenge, nearly $250,000. And 2 weeks ago at Laguna, he's really been running very well in all of his racing right now. This is probably as bad as he's been within the past 2 months.
Boy, Mario is not losing an inch to Michael. Those two are battling even though a lap separates them. Michael now trying on the outside to get around Didier Tays, the teammate of Bobby Rahal. It's Tays in that red car running third in this picture, but
Sam,
not third in the standings.
Yeah, Sam, I started to mention that Michael passed Mario a little while ago, pulled away a little bit, and darn if Mario isn't pulling back up on Michael. So maybe Mario's handling is coming in a little bit better, but he is down a lap.
So Michael Andretti is the leader. Al Unser Jr. is now 5.5 seconds back as we wait for him to come around the corner. There's the number 2 machine of Tays, and we wait for the 30 car. There it is, saddled in amidst that crowd of Al Unser Jr. But remember, he was in second place at this time in the race a year ago. In fact, he stayed in second all the way to the last lap when he picked up the lead.
All right, here he comes up now to where he would go into the pits. Yes, he does. I bet you and it'll be interesting to see what Jack Arute finds in the pits. I bet he flat spotted a tire when he was trying to pass Mario.
So we're on board with Little Al as he rolls down to the pits. The Shearson team waits, and so does Jack.
You about the fact that they were going to take on rain tires. Well, they have an additional task that they're facing right now. They've lost part of the front wing, and they're debating at this time as to whether to make the exchange or not. Dennis Swan and the crew are going to service all 4 tires, put the rain tires back on. So far, not a lot of work on the wing. In fact, he goes out with 1 flap down, shades of the World Series, minus 1 wing. You can see it there in the picture.
So Little Al involved in that decision-making process, and they decide they're going back into the action, and they're going to leave that left front off Bobby Unser. How much of an effect can it have?
Well, it really isn't going to be as much of an effect now as it would have been under the dry conditions. The track, you can see, is getting wet. The post has been on Al's, his wing post. He's not going to get another wing back on it, but the wetter it gets, the less that it will hurt him.
So really, with 1 stop by Bobby Rahal, only 1 change in the past few moments in the top 10. Michael Andretti is still the leader. Al Unser Jr. goes in and out of the pits and maintains his second place. In third place, though, is Jeff Brabham, having taken advantage of Bobby Rahal's stop. In fourth place, Mario Andretti, and Bobby Rahal is in fifth as the rain comes down. We take a look once again. Here's the top 5. Michael Andretti dominates this race, but still is in a fight with Little Al. And 6 through 10, Boisel continues to handle that car very well on behalf of Roberto Guerrero. We'll be right back.
The New York Giants are trying to turn their season around, but the Dallas Cowboys are battling to get atop the NFC East. They meet on ABC's Monday Night Football.
Anticipating a stop by this man, the leader, Michael Andretti. You're on board. You see his bright yellow low fuel light is flashing rather constantly now. Michael Andretti, originally scheduled to stop on this lap, 74 of 112. Now, he brings it through the final corner. The pit entrance road is just down to the right. Will he go for it? He drifts over to that side of the road, but will he actually make his stop here? Michael Andretti on the pit road, going for fuel and tires. It should be the last stop of the race. Can he hold off Al Unser Jr.? Can he keep that engine from faltering? His dad, Mario, comes in right behind him as Michael very carefully on the wet breaks over to the side, and Barry Green and the crew go to work. Let's go to Jack.
He has brought his car into pit road for service. A little bit of flame coming out from the turbocharger. They're changing to the wet tires, as we said before. The fuel light that was flickering gave a lot of concern to the entire team. You see there's a giant TV screen over their shoulder, and they saw it as well as the TV viewers. Now he's revving up the tires. He spins it, and he stalls it again. Now he fires it back up. A real close call, but he's off and underway one more time. A difficult, heart-stopping moment here in the pits.
Michael Andretti rolls out of the pits off of the first turn. Jeff Brabham comes by, and we believe that Al Unser also was able to get past on that stop. Bobby, you've been keeping an eye on little Al. No, he seems to be back.
Yes, he definitely came out behind Michael. Between the wet and the dry tires, he's definitely lost some, or possibly from that left front wing that's gone, Paul.
So Michael Andretti, despite that stuttering restart as he came out of the pits, is able to hold on to his lead.
Yes, because he ran that extra amount on the dry tires and pulled up a little bit of advantage. Now watch there's Al Unser Jr., the pursuer of Michael Andretti, and as we look at this situation, I think we have a report from Jack in the pits. Jack?
Well, there's some heated discussion going on right now between kart officials and the crew chief, Barry Green, behind me. You see, there was the rule that Paul Page alluded to earlier in today about excessive wheel spin. And in the drivers' meeting, Wally Dallenbach cautioned all of the drivers that if we find excessive wheel spin and trying to keep the tires lit up on the jack stand, we'll bring you in for a stop and go. That's the word we're receiving right now, that they're going to bring Michael Andretti in for a penalty, a stop and go for wheel spin. Back to you.
So Michael Andretti out in front of the race over Al Unser Jr., but the very real possibility that they will be bringing him back in as the rain gets just a little bit harder here. We watch that number 18 machine. Bobby Rahal brought the number 1 car back into the pits once again. They made some adjustments at the back of the car, and they have pushed Rahal back into the action.
Did Rahal take on rain tires or not is the key question, because now the track is becoming predominantly wet.
Sam, he had rain tires on the last stop. Something wasn't suiting him, is what would be my guess, and he just came in for some sort of adjustment. Plus, he did change a tire.
So here is Al Unser Jr., 20 seconds behind the leader, Michael Andretti. But that lead could disappear very rapidly if, in fact, CART decides to assess a penalty.
All right, now, of course, the stop-and-go penalty, which just consists of coming in and bringing your car to a complete stop in the pits and accelerating back out, could be fatal for Michael Andretti if he has trouble once again getting the car started.
Sam, more so with the pits as wet as they are. See, the pits have never dried out today, and plus it's raining on top of that, so Michael won't be able to come in and stop as fast as you normally would on a dry track.
Now, in totally perfect conditions, that 20-second lead that Michael has might be just enough to put him back out on the track right with Al Unser Jr. But in these conditions, I reckon he will probably lose and come out well behind it.
Well, it's going to be awfully close, and I think the big difference is that doggone wet pits right now. You just can't stop as fast as you normally can.
Well, it appears no longer to be a point, because the information now is that CART has decided they will not assess a stop-and-go penalty against Michael Andretti. That being true, 22-second lead over Al Unser Jr. Michael Andretti looks ahead past this season now, past this race to next season.
Not really. I think every race during the season we went for the win, and that's all we can do here. And I don't think it's going to do anything to help us for next year, because next year is a whole new year.
We're back at Tamiami Park in Miami. We watch Mario Andretti, Jeff Brabham, and then the leader of the race, Michael Andretti. Now, Michael has a 22-second lead, but what we are watching really is a battle for third as Jeff Brabham tries to catch up to the red number 5 car of Mario Andretti. And Jeff Brabham gets it down on the inside and gets the job done. So Jeff Brabham feeling racy now once again. We talked about him at the start of this race, and he's now working his way back through. Jeff Brabham moves into third place. The next car in front is Al Unser Jr. running in second.
The extraordinary thing was how slowly Mario was going, but we just saw him duck into the pit. So Mario Andretti going in for a tire change. I think that explains everything. Now, of course, the track has become wet. It is slick. It is not a torrential downpour yet. There aren't deep puddles which cause aquaplaning around the track yet. You see Mario having his dry tires changed to, his dry tires changed to rain tires. That explains the difficulty he was having.
He needed that desperately, Sam. I was watching Mario, and he was really slipping and sliding around.
Let's go to the pits.
Well, they've successfully made the exchange, and although Mario Andretti is none too happy a camper today, he is back out on the racetrack. They've gone from the dry to the wet, so maybe he will have an opportunity to get a little bit faster this afternoon. Back to you.
So Mario Andretti in that stop backs his way up to at least 4th place. Jeff Brabham moves up into 3rd. Al Unser Jr. is 2nd, and Michael Andretti is still the leader.
Paul, this has really been an interesting race. We've gone from wet tires to dry tires, a very fast course, back to wet now, but not the deep puddles. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen between now and the end of the race.
Extremely important point, but it's tough, not only on the driver, but the crews. They have to be ready with every possible combination in the pits, because at one moment the track has been perfectly dry and clear, though overcast, then suddenly rain, and they've got to throw all that rain gear back over the wall and be ready.
Just imagine of all the chassis changes that they had to think about doing before the race ever started to cover all these circumstances and the versatility the drivers have to be able to change this much.
So Michael Andretti is our leader. Al Unser Jr. is 2nd, followed by Jeff Brabham, Mario, and then Rick Mears. We'll be back. We're back at Tamiami Park in Miami, where the rain continues to fall, visibility worsens, and the wind picks up. 12 laps to go in this race. We've had 3 lead changes between Mario and Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. Average speed 95 miles an hour, but they're down running at about 87 miles an hour right now. Michael is well out in front of the 2nd place car of Al Unser Jr., but Jeff Brabham has begun to close in behind Michael, and he would love to unlap himself and get back on that leader lap so he could be in position to strike should it be bright. You see him close up right behind there. Michael in the first turn. He can see Brabham just behind him. Now Michael pulls to the inside. Michael on the inside, apparently just being very, very smart and letting Jeff Brabham by. He doesn't want to fight with him.
Well, see, that's an incredibly mature move by young Michael Andretti. And you know, anybody that's been watching their motor racing on ABC this year has seen Michael win the 500-miler at Michigan, win the race at Nazareth. This would be the 3rd in a row that we have seen him win. And I said at Nazareth, I thought maybe this was the driver of the year, and nothing that is happening in this race so far makes me want to change my mind.
I totally agree, Sam, and I think, in fact, it's even better. Michael has a way of letting Jeff be his bouncing board. In other words, he can watch it. If Jeff gets a little bit loose or if there's a big puddle they didn't know about, Jeff's going to see it first. So Michael has really shown a lot of maturity today.
But what about that potential penalty for Michael? They say they will not assess it, but why? Let's go to the pits and Jack.
We're standing here on pit row with Bill Camphausen, who will give us the final dispensation, or actually the determination, as to what they're going to do with Michael Andretti. What's the story, Billy?
There was a very close call. There were 3 or 4 people on it. I was way back about 5 pits away. It was close. I come down and I had conversation with our people. We have agreed that something was a problem with the people trying to let the car down. There was a slip, and it was a very close call. There is no penalty at this time. No penalty.
That's the story.
Well, that'll make it that much harder for this man, Al Unser Jr., currently running in 2nd to score a victory here today. Back to 8th place, there is John Andretti. He is the nephew of Mario Andretti, and he is now being closed upon by Tom Sneva, who has replaced Chip Robinson in this number 44 machine.
Well, you know, what makes driving one of these cars in the rain so different from driving a road car in the rain is that the aerodynamic downforce created by the wings and the ground effect enables an IndyCar to be very fast in the fast turns where the aerodynamics really work. You've also got the turbo, which gives you sudden power, which is the last thing you want if you're tiptoeing through a slow, wet turn. So it's really mentally very, very tough to drive in the rain.
So we watch the battle for 8th place. There's Tom Sneva. He runs 9th at the moment, but what we notice at the same time, Bobby Unser, is it's really beginning to pour here. The rain really coming down. And look at this. This is a fairly unusual unemployment line that we're talking about there. Mario Andretti doesn't know what he's going to do. You got a couple of Indy champions, and a lot of guys just don't know where they're going next year.
Unusual to say the least. There just aren't enough cars next year, but there's a batch of good cars, but there's a lot of good drivers without rides right now.
It begins to rain harder and harder now. The 9th place car, that is Tom Sneva trying to catch this car. 8th place, John Andretti. Michael Andretti still has the lead, and the speed is beginning to seep away. They're down to about 87 miles an hour average speed. At the top of the race, they were running in their fastest laps at 109 miles an hour, but you can see there's virtually no dry section any longer, and they're slipping and sliding all over the place.
Well, Bobby, you and I have both retired from racing, and I think at moments like this, maybe we understand why we did.
Yeah. Wet races are never fun. They're hard to do, but they're just never fun.
Michael Andretti, the leader of the race, as he tries to focus on a victory. And if it is one, it will be his 3rd in a row here on ABC. And Bobby Rahal has spun it off the edge of the course. Look at the rain come down through that section of the course. It's pouring on the backside as Bobby Rahal tries to get going. The corner workers have bravely come out to try and help him, and they try to get him started.
Paul, heavy rain like that makes big puddles. Big puddles mean that the car's aquaplane can get up on top of the water and don't even get a hold of the pavement. And I'm sure that's what happened to Bobby Rahal. You can see how big the raindrops are there.
You know, I don't think there can be any question about the versatility as Bobby Rahal gets started of the IndyCar driver. He runs on ovals, he runs on high bank super speedways, short ovals, temporary circuits, and regular road courses. And now many of these drivers are showing incredible skill in the rain.
Well, I think also you have to ask how much longer is this race going to be allowed to run, Paul and Bobby? I mean, visibility has gotten down to the point where it is nearly zero if you're following another car, as Michael Andretti is here following Jeff Brabham. So obviously the officials, they can stop a race like this, and they may be thinking about it.
The real concern is visibility, though. They can run in the rain, but if they can't see, they can't race.
No, the only thing, like with Michael right there following Jeff, the only thing he's doing is following.
Red flag is out. Red flag is out. This race is over. This race has come to an end, as Michael Andretti is given the checkered flag and the red flag at the same time. And Michael Andretti, there's the red flag. Michael Andretti has won the race. It's gone past the halfway point, and so Michael Andretti is our winner.
Fantastic. I mean, obviously the rain was the story of the race. When it came, when it went away, and it is amazing, Bobby, I think, how tactically astute the teams were today.
Well, they certainly were, and I just started mentioning before the red and checkered flag came out, Sam, that the only thing
there is Pancho Carter sitting by the edge of the road. He's spun too. Excuse me, Bobby.
Well, the only thing they could follow was the rooster tail of the water going up in the air, and that isn't very much to see by. So the guys have done a very good job today driving in the rain.
Michael Andretti rolls it down into the pits. This is his final moments, the final moments of the 1987 season, as much slowly than earlier in the day, Michael Andretti rolls to a stop. And Tom Sneva, the 44 car, sits by the edge of the course. So at this point, a good time to stop the race. Al Unser Jr. finishes in second and acknowledges that position with a wave. So the race is run at Tamiami Park, and here is your winner, Michael Andretti. A magnificent run, proving incredible versatility. Michael Andretti has won the 3rd race at Tamiami. We'll be back to talk with him in just a moment.
Saturday begins with ABC's College Football Today. Then it's revenge in the Big Ten when Michigan meets Minnesota. Last year, the Golden Gophers upset the Wolverines. Now, led by the #1 running back in the conference, Jamie Morris, the Wolverines are primed for a payback or an exciting Pac-10 matchup. Everybody's having fun Saturday on ABC's College Football.
This broadcast is being produced under authority granted by championship auto racing teams for the private use of our audience. Any reproduction of this broadcast in any form without the express written permission of championship auto racing teams is expressly prohibited. Michael Andretti has won at Tamiami. Let's join him now.
Well, one driver, the rain didn't rain on his parade today, is Michael Andretti. First of all, Michael, congratulations, but it wasn't an easy afternoon.
No, it was a real tough afternoon. Al Jr. really kept the pressure on, and I just kept praying for rain. That's what I knew, that we had a little bit of an advantage when it was wet. When it was dry, it was pretty equal, so it pays to pray.
The litany continued on pit road with the faulty engine, or at least the stalling on pit stops. Have you been able to isolate what the potential problem may be during these pit stops?
I don't know what it is. You know, it looked like we were doing the same thing in Nazareth, but we really weren't. I got the signal to drop the car, and it dropped, and it just died on me twice. I don't know why.
Well, your feelings about ending the season with a victory, does that, well, it caps things off this year, but does it give the team an added impetus going into the winter?
Helps a lot. Helps a lot. It's just great. I think now it just, we can't wait for next year.
Well, that's the story from Victory Lane. Let's go back up to you.
So Michael Andretti wins the race with a red flag at 103 laps, the distance scheduled to be 112. Al Unser Jr. comes across the line in second place, followed by Jeff Brabham, then Mario Andretti, Rick Mears, Raul Boesel, Bobby Rahal, followed by John Andretti, Tom Sneva, Emerson Fittipaldi, Ari Leyendyke, and Danny Sullivan comes home in 12th place. Now, this race did have a definite effect on the points in the kart championship. First and second place coming into this race already wrapped up. Bobby Rahal had the first place, and in second place was Michael Andretti. But by finishing second in the race, Al Unser Jr. moves up and into third place just ahead of Roberto Guerrero. So the race is run, the Nissan Indy Challenge at Tamiami, and it's been brought to you by Nissan Cars and Trucks, built for the most important race of all, the human race. By Miller Lite, for great taste, there's only one life. By the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, no matter how far you go, Goodyear takes you home. And by Head & Shoulders Shampoo. Now, your good grooming is Head & Shoulders above all the rest. In a final moment of the season, we go back to a drier day 2 weeks ago in this tribute to Bobby Rahal as we watch him win the 1987 championship.
Don't look at yourself in the same old way. Take another picture. Shoot the stars off in your own backyard. Don't look any further, and you will see